So today's Facebook Live session is on textiles of Rajasthan, a rich living tradition. This live is a part of the project partnered with the Rajasthan Royal Foundation, the social impact arm of Rajasthan Royals, to document the cultural heritage of the state of Rajasthan. Uh, I will briefly introduce you all to Professor Meenakshi Singh. She has been the former Dean Academics and is now a faculty member at the Indian Institute of Crafts and Design, Jaipur. And she has more than 25 years of experience working in the craft and design sector. She has taught at the National Institute of Design, Ahmedabad, in the Department of Textile and Apparel Design. She moved to IICD as one of the founding faculty members in 1999. Development of the craft sector and bringing it back to the glory which it enjoyed traditionally is her vision for the craft sector for the country. She has worked extensively in Khadi sector and with NGOs in the remote villages of Rajasthan in several skill upgradation and product development projects. She has also worked in the craft retail sector, setting up the first Fab India store in Rajasthan. She was instrumental in setting up a museum shop, the Palace Atelier, at the MSM Museum, Jaipur. Currently, she is also involved with working as a volunteer in Creative Dignity, which is a pan India voluntary movement that has been formed post lockdown to help artisans, providing them relief, rehabilitation, and rejuvenation. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for taking out time and to do this. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Sindhuri. And at the onset, let me thank Sapedia for inviting IICD for this event. And this really gives us an opportunity of sharing our experience of working with Rajasthan, and whatever we have learned about Rajasthan and the textiles of Rajasthan, to share it with the rest of the world. Before I begin the presentation, I'd like to quickly introduce IICD to everyone. The Indian Institute of Crafts and Design, IICD, is a unique institution which is the only one of its kind in the country. And IICD enjoys being the area of excellence is the craft. And let me just share my screen. You will have to just guide me a bit. Is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So IICD is a rich institute, and it's the only institute of its kind in the country. And we have students coming from all over the country. And it started by the government of Rajasthan, and it is now managed by Ambuja Trust, Educational Trust. So talking about textiles of Rajasthan, we have a very, very rich tradition. And it is actually a living tradition. Rajasthan, which was formerly called the Rajputana, where it was a land of kings, and it enjoyed the patronage of the rulers. Therefore, the crafts, the textiles, and the heritage, it really flourished. And because nature has not given it too much of abundance, we are a desert state, but humans have made it very vibrant and colorful because of the kind of clothes and costumes we wear. It's become a very vibrant and colorful uh, state. And the traditional lifestyle of Rajasthan, it also helps us to uh, continue and flourish the heritage and traditions that we have enjoyed over the period of time. Although it's known as a desert state, but we have we enjoy a lot of natural resources also. And Rajasthan is one of the largest producer of wool, because the sheep and cattle rearing is a very important occupation in the desert areas. And we have several clusters, and we provide a variety of textile techniques which are practiced in the whole state. And we use indigenous products and materials, indigenous materials to make our textiles, and we also import materials from the other parts of the country and the world. The major factors that influence the textile traditions are the geography, the history. So because of geography, it's a desert region. We have a lot of coarse wool which is produced. So you find a lot of carpets and a lot of floor coverings and the thick shawls made out of desi wool, which were produced here. And because of the royal patronage, so the crafts have really flourished, and the fine block printing, the fine leheria, the resist dyed techniques, they have flourished because of the whole royal patronage. And the political situations like the migration, especially the migration after the partition and the 71 war, there are a lot of people who have migrated from Pakistan and have settled in the western part of the state, and they have in turn brought along with them the traditional crafts of embroideries and applique, which we will see. So the whole belt of Bardmer, Jaisalmer, Bikaner is full of the people who have migrated from there. And also the material availability and non-availability has affected the textiles. Our cultural practices are very strong. We celebrate each and every festival with a lot of gusto, and along with each festival, we have textiles, associated with all the textiles, with all the festivals. So if we just want to, categorize our textiles, technique wise, we have woven textiles, printed textiles, resist dyed textiles, embroidered, and one category which I've just put as non-woven. So when we talk of woven textiles, we have Kotadoria, which is done in these clusters, and Pattu weaving is also practiced, which is like an embroidered, it looks like embroidery on the loom. And the Panja daris are the famous Salawas daris, which Shah Mahuja grew into fame because of those daris. Those daris are made in the Jodhpur area, the Salawas area in Jodhpur, and hand knotted carpets, which are made in Jaipur. And in fact, talking about patronage, the famous Jaipur hand knotted carpets were made in the jail of Jaipur, where the kings thought, people who were in the jail, they should be trained and they should be put to, doing something creative. And the beautiful daris and carpets that came out of the jails were really good, and that is what is actually given the name to the Jaipur carpets. When we talk of printing, we have lots of clusters in printing. I will just show you a few things about it later. And when we talk of resist dyeing, leheria, we have bandhej, which is also practiced in other parts of the country. But leheria is the craft, which is again a resist dyed craft, which is practiced only in Rajasthan. So it is a very intrinsic craft, just focused to our state. And when we talk of embroidered textiles, also we are very rich. The entire belt of the western part of the Rajasthan is doing hand embroidery. And gota, which is again a woven material, which is like a small, it comes in varying widths, but gota is woven on small looms, and then it is cut and folded and appliqued over different surfaces. So it's basically an applique technique, but it is done using, it's like a, it's woven with gold and silver threads. And now it is practiced in Ajmer, the whole weaving. And danka work is again a very unique craft, which is made out of, it's like a metal sheet of made out of silver. Earlier, it used to be made out of gold, but that's now very expensive. So it is made of silver and it is gold plated. And then it is cut into small little pieces, which are then embroidered over a period, over a surface. And beautiful saris and poshaks and various products are made out of this technique. And it is intrinsic only to Udaipur. And when we talk of non-woven, we have, because we have a lot of wool, we do a lot of felting, and Tonk is an area which is famous for felt. Again, talking of patronage, the Nawab of Tonk, he patronized this craft, and it's the entire cluster is making felt. And it is also not just for local use, but it is also exported. And patwa is a craft which is, I have taken it into textiles because it uses a lot of thread, and it is joint craft along with the famous jewelry craft of Rajasthan. So patwa is something which is made out of thread. And it is the patwas which put the jewelry small pieces together to actually convert it into a wearable piece of jewelry. And ply split braiding is another which is traditionally called oot ka tang. You know, the shepherds used to go into the desert and they would, decorate their camels beautifully. So it was again something which was practiced by the men in the desert areas. It is also, our traditions. If you compare Rajasthan with a lot of other states, we are still, holding on to our rituals and traditions and festivals. So that is what really helps us to, continue our crafts and keep it alive. Because when Holi comes, the whole market is flooded with something called Fagania. I will show you a visual of what it looks like. And when Teej comes, the entire market is flooded with leheriyas, which means we are buying leheria, we are buying Faganiyas. So, which means the industry is geared towards creating that for everyone. So, Fagania and leheria on Diwali, we all wear bandhej and a lot of garments made of gotapatti. So, there's a lot of market for this. Therefore, the crafts and textiles have flourished. Weddings is another big reason for keeping the crafts alive. And Gotapatti, Zardozi, Aritari, Bandhej, Lehriya, these are things which are very festive for any festive occasions. These would be used. And Ajrak is a typical method of block printing which is used by the Malthari Muslim community for their weddings. The bridegroom has to wear a lungi and has to a shoulder cloth made of Ajrak. So because of these customs, the textiles have remained alive. There's another very interesting ritual or a custom which we have in Rajasthan is that when a mother gives birth to a child, it used to be a male child, not anymore. I mean, it can be any gender. The birth is equally celebrated. A poshak of pila, or if not the whole outfit, at least the odna which is covered, so a pila is gifted to the new mother by the parents or the in-laws. And of course, the wedding trousseau, the beautiful hand embroidered products or the beautiful woven pattus are used for gifting to each other, to the families, and as hand embroidery. So nearly all the crafts, they flourish because of all these rituals and customs. So this is like one of the wedding pictures, and this is my daughter. And we still practice these rituals, and because of these, it's like a living tradition. If you look at this area here, before the wedding, we are kind of preparing that how should a bolster, a masan cover look like. So you can see a lot of preparation going on, and the gota masan being created here, which when the bride and the bridegroom, they leave the house during the bidai, then on this bed you can see this masan here, and this is during the bidai it is used. So the whole idea is that tradition is used as in all our rituals, and it has kept things alive. These were it is called thalposh, basically like plate covers, tray cloths. So again, adorned. Anything that you do, anything that is festive, it is all adorned and kept beautifully. So these are plate covers which were made for gifting. Again, it was something which belongs to the family. Here, talking about, the museums have a huge, the beautiful crafts which used to be there and which give inspiration to us are there in the museums. So these are visuals from the City Palace Museum, the MSMS2 City Palace Museum. And this is a poshak which was worn during the Diwali. As history goes, in Jaipur, the royal family will don themselves on Diwali wearing black or a navy blue, a deep blue is what they wear. Because on the day of Diwali, on Amavasya, they had fought with the Meenas, who were the rulers of the area of Jaipur. And the Kachawas had fought with them and had won the battle. But because there was a lot of bloodshed, because they had killed a lot of people, so they actually, in remorse, till date, they wear black during Diwali. And if you see, these are all actually pure silver gota, and this is all appliqued. So small leaves are cut and appliqued together. So this is a really intricate work on a Diwali poshak. And this is still practiced. So this is a picture of City Palace. And during the Diwali, everyone is dressed in black. Again, this is a replica. When I was setting up a museum shop, we were replicating things which were there in the museum to sell from the museum shop. So this is a replica of a beautiful hand fan. And again, Gotapatti work on this. There was a lot of influence from, so this is a British influence. So the choga used to be worn. It came in from the Mughals, and the Jaipur and the Mughals were all, intermingled, and there was a lot of influence of that. But this use of the net material and use of this kind of embroidery, the influence of, sorry. So this was again replicated from the museum. Another choga, a replication from the museum. There are these beautiful murals in the City Palace walls, on the City Palace walls, and this was translated in textile using Gotapatti and Zardozi work on a satin silk cushion cover. All the interiors are beautified by the textiles. So you can see the bamboo and the fabric blinds, which is there in the Jal Mahal Palace in Jaipur. Talking of the various techniques, we begin with the resist dyeing, the bandhani technique, where the women tie it and it is dyed. So wherever it is tied, the area is resisted and that is remaining white. Again, the entire belt of the Bikaner water is very good for dyeing, and the colors are very fast there. And there's a huge belt of wool producing area there. So a lot of tie-dyed shawls are made in Bikaner. This is the Fagania that I was talking about. So when Holi comes, we wear this kind of, so it's an off-white or a white background and with red tie-dyed, these are called laddus. And this is a pila odna worn by the new mothers. This I just took out from my wardrobe and took pictures of the Fagnia. These are some variations of the Fagnias. And we still practice it here, whether it is for casually wearing at home or whether it's for a formal occasion where it's a Holi get-together at the City Palace. People are still wearing Fagnias, and therefore the Fagnias and the textiles are still flourishing. This is again a pila. So Lehriya, which I was talking about. So most of the tying is done by the women. And it used to be made for the turbans, but now it is made all the year round. And this is one craft which has flourished over the period of time, rather than, languishing. Because the artisans say earlier we used to work only 4 months in a year, but now we work around the year. Earlier we would make only headgears, pagdis, but now we make variety of products and variety of. But sadly, the quality is deteriorating. This is one of the older mothras, which is there with an artisan, And if you ask them to make this, and it is all done in natural dyes. So if you ask them to make this now, it's very difficult for them to do it. So these are all ancient ones which are there for us to see, but very difficult for them to make it now. Because the fabric quality used to be thin, the fabric width used to be less, and there was a lot of time to do things. This is a recent one, which it was commissioned, and there are artisans who can make things now still, but you need to give them time, and you need to give them patronage, you need to give them money. So this is a Nagina Mothra. Lot of skill is required, it's very labor intensive, and as many colors you see here, those many times it has been tied and dyed. So this was a sari which I got made for myself from the artisans, and we still have a lot of people who are skilled and who will do things for us. So this is again a very intricate, very fine motra, and has been done just about some 6-7 years ago. This is again a leheria, which is called Samdar Leher or Samundar Leher, and inspired by the rainbows. And we wear leherias in Rajasthan only during the rainy season. So there are only 2 months, or rather 1 month of Shravan, where everyone will start buying leherias and start wearing leherias. From the sweepers to people on the scooters, to people in the cars, to the royal families, everybody will be wearing leherias. And this is a typical leheria, which is from Udaipur. It is called Bhopal Shahi Leheria. So again, talking of patronage, the Rana of Udaipur, called Bhopal Singh, he had commissioned the artisan to create this. Now, from resist dyeing, we are now shifting to the woven textiles of Rajasthan. And this is a place called Kaithun near Kota. During one of my projects, I had taken these pictures. So all the yarn is dyed, and the warping is done. Lot of labor intensive work here. This is the sizing. So Kota is done in the Kota Doria, which is otherwise Rajasthan is a very arid state, but Kota Doria is a beautiful, fine, thin fabric which requires dampness in the air. And the area of Kota has the Chambal River, and there's a lot of vegetation. So therefore, this has flourished. And again, talking of patronage, the king of Kota went to Mysore, and he saw some beautiful fabric there, and he loved it. So he got a few artisans to Kota and asked them to weave something like that here. And that is how it is flourished in this area. So this is a group called KWWO, that is Kota Women Weavers Organization. This is a sari which Tahira is weaving on the loom. They use pit looms, and is very happy with doing something which was quite challenging for her. These are the other beautiful Kota Doria saris. And then, a lot of value addition by printing. Block printing is also done on Kota Doria, and it's the best fabric to use for the winters, for the summers. Really airy, and a lot of value addition is done using and product diversification and product development, because the fabric is really beautiful. This is the pattu weaving of the Western Rajasthan, and it's an extra weft technique. It's actually, they call it kashida kari. They call it embroidery on the loom. It looks like as if it's embroidered, and it's all extra weft thread. It's again used doing on pit loom. And now a lot of diversification of material is happening, because earlier it used to be on woolen fabric material, because the winters are very intense in Rajasthan. But over the period of time, designers have interacted with them, and now cotton has been introduced, and it is used for home furnishings and for garments as well, and made-ups and bags. Another woven technique is the Panjadari, which I was talking about, the Sham Ahuja fame. And we have hand knotted carpets, Again, very labor intensive. It takes like more than a month to make one carpet. And khadi, the woolen khadi, as I said, the maximum woolen wool is produced. The Rajasthan is the producer of the wool, but now the desi wool is not used so much, and a lot of merino is imported, and that is used by the weavers. But we produce a lot of woolen khadi here. These are some beautiful products made by the artisans for their own use. When you go and tell them that, make something for me, they will make, but, it won't be so intricate and, not so much from the heart. But these are some pieces which were brought in from their homes. And this is a mukka technique. This is called khambira. And so all these are varying stitching. I mean, all the stitches have different names, and they are made by different communities. So each community has a specific, this is khambira. And mind you, they do not, now of course they have started printing the design. Otherwise, all the Indian embroideries used to be counted thread. So there would be a khaddar or a khadi fabric, which was woven in such a way that you could see the warp and the weft. So they could actually count the thread and do the embroidery. They did not need any sort of printing over it. So this is a couching technique. So the thread, the golden and the silver thread is called mukka, which goes round and round, and it is couched. So the best quality mukka is, I believe, it comes from Pakistan. And all these people who do practice this have also moved to India from Pakistan. This is the applique or the reverse applique, which is practiced widely. And if you see, there's a lot of similarity between the embroidered textiles of Rajasthan and Gujarat. This embroidery is called kharik. Kharik is the date. So if you see this corrugated effect, so this is the embroidery which is called kharik. And of course, it is all the mirrors are applied to beautify all kinds of embroideries here. And these intricate fundas are used to make it even more beautiful. They make these really nice hand fans, and the use of color is amazing in Rajasthan. That's what people love about Rajasthan, and that's what they come here to see. Some more applique and patchwork. This is during one of my projects with an NGO in Badmer, Society to Uplift Rural Economy. So now coming to this Gotapatti work, I'm sure everyone knows about it, loves wearing it. All designers have been using it intensively. So they all have different names. The bigger one is the widest one is called the Lappa. And now, of course, it's available as small pieces. You can stick it, but earlier they never used to stick. And the quality has gone down in all crafts. This is the Danka work that I was talking about in Udaipur. The block printing Rajasthan is famous for block printing. And these are the pictures from Anokhi Museum. They have this demonstration happening there all the time. And we take every batch that comes to IICD, we take our students for a visit to the Anokhi Museum. So in that museum, you see the entire history of what is the craft and what is the craft of this block printing all about, how are blocks made, what are the different kinds of blocks, what are the different clusters of block printing in Rajasthan. So it's a beautiful museum and must visit by everyone. And not just that, it's the John and Faith, they took this Haveli and they resurrected this Haveli. So you can see this before and after images of this Haveli, which was converted into a museum. So broadly, we'll just talk about, what the kind of, so these are natural dyes, and the Bagru, cluster of Bagru is still practicing natural dyes, where they use Syahi and Begar. Those are the large, the main two colors that you get in Bagru. So Syahi, all the black is the Syahi, and Begar is the red area. And the Sanganeri print has a off-white or a whitish or a light colored background, and they're more intricate. So Bagru was more for the folk people, for the common man, common people, and Sanganer printed for the royalties and the higher strata of society. And this is the Dabu from the mud resist, which is, the mud paste is made and it is printed, and then it is dyed in indigo. And if it is, like you can see the whiter ones, that was the first resist, and then it is dipped in the lighter blue. And then again it is resisted and then dipped into, so you can do like 2 or 3 times and you can get gradation of blues. And mostly it is done in, I mean, most people do it in indigo, but you can use other natural dyes techniques also for dyeing. So there are these people who, I mean, there are various brands. Of course, Anokhi is the one who really resurrected the dyeing craft of block printing. It was really going down in the 70s, early 70s, and Anokhi really revived it. And now, of course, it's the most flourishing craft. So there are lots of companies which are working with block printing. And this couple, young couple, they have taken this block printing into a completely different level, contemporized it, and doing really fine quality work with block printing. This is some of our, one of our students' work. This is during the Kota Doria project. This was made. And again, talking of non-woven, felt is practiced in Tonk. So this is from a person called Sushil Jain. He has a factory and they produce very good namda. It is called namda. This is one of the IICD graduates. Aparajita had made some of these, she had gone to Sushilji's place and experimented with the felt and created some products. So this is the patwa craft that I was talking about. It's really like, so simple. It's just the thread and one tool that they have, and they just wrap around and they create such beautiful things with this craft. And this is a languishing craft really. And a lot of our students have been working on it. And there's a person called Errol, who is, I will just show you a visual about him. So this is ply split braiding or oot katang. And this is Errol, who has he's really taken it to a different level altogether, and he's dedicated his whole life to teaching, to learning and teaching this craft of oot katang, and has taken it to a completely different level. This is by one of our graduate who was very keen to, and see, we keep in IICD, we keep bringing artisans and other visiting faculty to come and teach the students about different crafts. And this is a student who really loved this craft, and he went to Errol, he learned it from him, and he is making these very interesting belts out of this technique. So talking about, craft really needs new development and new design. So this is again, just sharing some visuals of how contemporary crafts and design development can do to the basic craft. So these are some of the products which were developed using various themes. So the water was the theme here, earth is the theme. This is also from the earth theme. This is a bright collection. So using the same skills of the artisans, these collections were developed. This was done for an NGO who wanted to give work to, and they have a shop in Ranthambore, which is a wildlife sanctuary, a tiger sanctuary. So these were some products made for them. So these are some contemporary products. They don't make garments, so some of it was converted into garments, simplified it, where they don't have to use too much. So these are projects which IICD had done with the artisans from Badmer. So do the basics. So, the use of design, interaction with designers help them to think in a different way. Otherwise, the craft will, for progression, for progressing, the craft has to remain, the same skill has to be there, but you have to constantly develop and move further. So that is what the interaction with designers help. So these are projects which are done by ISCD. So now the need of the craft is that it requires patronage, which means earlier there were kings who did patronage, but now the government has to create such policies which were conducive to the craft development. And each and every one of us has to become a patron. And so we also need to help the artisan to connect to the market. Innovation, constant innovation, and new designs are required. And the technology, we have to go hand in hand with technology, because we can't say we will just go into the traditional manner, but we have to keep evolving. Otherwise, the crafts will die. So ISCD is presently working with post pandemic, this whole movement has come about in the country, which is called the Creative Dignity Movement. And we are working very closely with them. Hundreds of our students and faculty, they are working pan-India. And we are helping the artisans to make catalogs of their products, connecting them to the market, the online portals, and helping them to sell online. So it's been very successful. And since June, we have been involved with them. And we're going to be constantly working. And this is in the process of, it's still in the pipeline, and I think it's going to continue. So I will just share a few catalogs with you. Sindhuri, do we have time? Can we see a few catalogs of the artisans?
Yes, ma'am, definitely.
So I'll just begin with Ajrak, because I did not have too many visuals of Ajrak too. So these are the catalogs which we are making for the artisans, which has all the information about the artisan. And we are distributing it to various places, to the online portals. Every week we show the catalogs to online portals, and they are connected to the artisans. So this is from Badmer, an artisan who is doing Ajrak work. This is his work. So they're making variety of products. And see, now the artisans have also learned, and they have become, they have adapted to what the market needs. So a lot of stoles, dupattas, saris, and also saris in different materials have been made by the artisans now. This is a place called Balotra. And they again do a lot of resist dyeing. Very traditional work used to happen, but now they are adapting, and they are kind of, fusing a lot of techniques and materials as per the market demand. So the purists might say that, oh, the old craft is dying. But well, I have a different opinion. I feel because they are adapting, because they're changing, they're still there. If they continue to do what they were doing, which the market doesn't need anymore, they would not have remained. So he has a beautiful collection of saris. And these are the typical bed covers, which are from Balotra. Lot of resist printing and indigo dyeing and natural dyeing is used in this. These are really typical, like this has a name. It is called Methi Dana. So each print has a name. All the traditional prints were not nameless. That's the big difference between what we are doing now. Like this is Qatar. And see, now this shibori is not a typical Indian technique, but adaptation and learning from each other is happening. So there are a lot of shibori, the traditional people, because there is market demand, probably because they have attended workshops of various Japanese workshops must have been created, and so they have adapted and they are learning new things. So I was quite surprised to see them working on shibori. This is one area called Akola, where they used to do main ki chapai, yani wax printing. They used to print by wax using wax, and where the resist would be very fine, but it's a very time-taking process. So gradually, they have moved to printing with mud. So they're doing mud resist. Yet there is something in the water there, something in the skill there. If you look at their dabu and the dabu which is done in, say, Jaipur or Bagru, there's a lot of difference. So there, the Akola print is much finer, and the indigo and the whiteness is much better. So this is again the Mr. Udewal's son is studying at IICD, and we have a lot of artisans' children coming and studying with us, and then they go back to their craft, and they just take it to a different level altogether with the kind of exposure that they get with us. So this is. I hope I'm not going too fast, because I just thought, since we have lack of time.
No, ma'am, it's absolutely fine.
Now, I think we can look at Bagru. This is Mr. Shri Ballabh, and Bagru, as I said, they do natural dyes. So he's printing with syahi. And when it is printed, it looks like this, and after bhatti chadne ke baad, it gets all the colors. So Bagru has typical these colors, where harda is done in the background, and there's red and there is black. Those are the typical Bagru colors, syahi begar. And then other colors are also added, the other natural dyed colors. So very reasonable rates. And all these are available, these catalogs are available on the Creative Dignity website. So people who are interested in buying, they can have a look at that and deal with the artisans directly. See, now, because maybe the market is not there so much, so he is now also doing chemical dyes. So this printing is not natural dyes. So they're doing all kinds of work, because livelihood is important. So this is a Sanganer. So I've tried to pick one catalog from different clusters, so you get a visual idea of what is the difference between them. So this is Santosh Kumar Dhanopia from Sanganer. So now if you see visually, it is different. There are whiter backgrounds. The printing is done with pigments. They're not using natural dyes at all. And in Sanganer, they don't do mud resist or dabu. They do pigment largely and other chemical printing techniques. But because of that, the printing is more intricate and the designs are more intricate. So that's the major difference. So I will quickly show you one more, which is the Panjadaris. The Punjab Dari weaving, this is a person from near Jaipur. It's a place called Lawan. It's 50 kilometers from, and he makes really beautiful daris. These are all done on looms by hand. And it's an entire Lawan is a cluster of carpets and daris. So I think I will stop it here.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It really was a wonderful presentation. I think people have been loving it. There are a
Okay,
few
that's
questions
nice to
if
hear.
you'd like to answer.
Sure, because I'm not able to see them, but if you
No
can just
problem.
tell
I
me,
will
yeah,
read it out for you.
sure.
Um, so Sonia Kanchan says, are there any international influences in the textile designs or in the technology that they're using?
There is. See, you can't pinpoint and say, but definitely there are a lot of influences. If we go back from history, there is Mughal influence, there is British influence, then now there is a lot of international influence, because see, now there's a lot of globalization. There is, now even political boundaries are kind of getting merged because of this communication. So now people do as per. So a lot of these designs, which I think the Akola one that you saw, he had a lot of contemporary prints which traditionally were not there. So it is because of the demand, and international market has influenced, especially the block printing has been influenced a lot with international market. And even say in Leheria, natural dyes are being used. One of our students, I couldn't add his pictures here, but he is now working. He's from an artisan family who is doing leheria, and he is working with natural dyes, and he's getting a very good response. So there are influences. Like I showed you shibori. It's not a traditional Indian technique, but now you will find our artisans talking about shibori as if it's their traditional thing. So
Okay.
there are influences in everything.
Mhm. The next question is by Sri Lagna Majumdar. She asks, what are the textiles that are exclusive to royalty in Rajasthan?
See, if you look at historically, Sanganer was printing for the royalty. Sanganer was printing for the temples. So historically, now things are all merging. It's anyone who has the money can do it. I mean, can use it. So it's more of how much the social strata is, people who can afford it. It's like that. But yes, Gota Patti, see, Gota, if you look at historically again, the queens and the royalty will not be wearing Gota so much because it was not considered very high level. So, but it was the Zardozi and the real work of silver and intricate. The more intricate the work, the more it is for the higher level people. So there's nothing like, historically, yes, one was like Bagru was for folk and Sanganer was for the royalty. But now it's kind of merging. But
Hmm.
it is, people who have money, people who are for royal, I mean, the royalty, whatever, they will go for better quality of products. So, the quality will definitely, I mean, the same Sanganeri print can be of varying levels. Can be very expensive and it can be very reasonable. So again, talking of international, I just thought of it. There's someone called Brigitte Singh. She's a French lady, And she came on a scholarship to study, and she's an artist. And she kind of settled down here, studied block printing, and she took it completely to a different level. So people, there are like Faith Singh came and she saw that, well, this has a lot of potential, the block printing, and it was not happening. So she, being from the UK, she patronized a few block printers, and took some things there, and they did very well.
Right. Moving on, Mobi Sara asks, do these colors have any symbolic meanings in their culture?
Absolutely, yes. Every color symbolism is very much there. Like I just spoke to you about a few, but definitely, like when in this Raksha Bandhan Rakhi,
Mm-hmm.
that time everyone will be wearing a typical Rajasthani pink. It's called Rani. It's called Rani pink. It's like that fuchsia pink. I'd shown you a motra of that color in the visual. So that is one. The auspicious, and see, color has a lot of influence. I mean, culturally, color has very strong influences. Like if a widow will be wearing something, if somebody is a new mother, she'll be wearing something. Somebody is, newly married, there is a different color. So there is something called pakka color and kacha rang. So pakka rang are all the blues, grays, browns, greens. They are not worn blacks. They are not worn by married women who are suhagans. The married women will be wearing red, pink, yellow, orange. So the colors are very typically divided. But again, not anymore so much. People who follow, like I wear all colors, but my sister will never wear a blue or a green. If you give her something, she'll like look at you like, what is wrong with you? Why should I wear this color? So people don't wear black, blue, green,
Mm-hmm.
white, no, big no for white. And especially when I mean, when somebody dies in the family, so we do this mourning for 12 days. So at least for these 12 days we don't wear kacha color. Everybody in the family will be wearing a pakka rang. So we have separate clothes for mourning. So we will have these lavenders and mauve and uh, blues and greens. So those are the colors kept aside. Those saris or those lehenga suits and odnis, those are kept aside to wear for mourning. So if you have to go visiting for a mourning, you will wear those colors. You will not go there in a pink or a yellow or a. And after, on the 12th day, when the mourning is over, there's a havan and there's a puja and everything, and then there'll be lots of ladies sitting, and they will all change their color. So earlier they used to wear lehenga. So while sitting, they don't get up. While sitting, each one will be handed over a pink dupatta, a pink odhna. So they would be wearing a blue or a green odhna, and everyone, while sitting, they will be just, they'll just change their color, and then they'll get up from there. It's quite a sight. I mean, talking of color, this kind of symbolism is still practiced in Rajasthan.
Hmm. Ma'am, we are getting a lot of questions asking where they can buy these prints that you just showed.
Yes. So I just told you it is available on creativedignity.org.
Okay.
So there's a website called Creative. So you can just go to that website, and you will find all the catalogs there. And it's not just like I showed you very few, but we are working pan India, from Assam to from Ladakh and Kashmir to Kerala to Rajasthan and Gujarat to Assam. You know, we are spread into the entire country. And by now, I think we made about 300 catalogs, and they would be uploaded on the website. And on each catalog, the artisan's name, address, phone number, email ID, everything is given. So you can talk directly to them, and access it. And in case there is any issue or anyone wants to get in touch with anything, you can share my email ID and they can write to us. We'll facilitate.
Definitely. I think then there are a lot of comments thanking you for such a great talk.
Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you.
People have been loving it. I don't think there are any more questions.
All right. Thank you
So
so
I think
much.
we could
And
conclude it.
this is all for the love of craft.
Mhm.
And, you know, and thanks to IICD that, we've traveled with our students all over the state, various parts of the countries. And, we've met artisans, we've been in their houses, we've eaten with them, we've cooked with them. So, this whole experience of being a faculty and a student of IICD is a very different experience altogether.
But thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
I
Thank you.
appreciate that you took out time in your busy
Not
schedule.
at all. It's my pleasure. Yeah.
I think we've all loved it. Thank you so much for coming and joining us. I hope the audience has enjoyed this session. We will be back with more such sessions on different other topics. So please watch out for the Roots of Rajasthan project. And we need to thank our partners, Royal Rajasthan Foundation, as well as Rajasthan Royals, for supporting this talk. Thank you so much. Have a
Thank
great
you.
evening.